So everybody knows this guy. He's basically the Jesus of Warhammer 40K, and a really crappy father to 12 genetically enhanced warrior sons. To give you an idea of how bad of a dad he was, he actually started off with 20 sons. He lost all of them, eventually found some of them, disowned some of them, and ended up directly or indirectly killing some of them. But I digress. So back to his story. He went by a few names, but mostly he's known as the Emperor of Mankind. He's saved humanity a few times, and is essentially the only reason humans still exist in the grim-dark universe of 40K. However, to understand why he wasn't great, we must go to the beginning. Big E was born as a pretty regular ass dude in one of the first human tribes somewhere in present-day Turkey. Eventually, he realizes he's special and disappears off the face of the earth. During his vacation, he takes one too many acid trips and foresees humanity's destruction and the existence of the warp and chaos gods. Time passes, and with his immortality, he watches humans thrive and progress to the point they reach critical mass. This was known as the Age of Technology, where humans discovered warp travel, allowing them to colonize vast reaches of space. Humans also start evolving into full-blown X-Men, with humans developing psychic abilities. But this all came at a price. The Psykers were indirectly inviting demonic incursions each time they used their psychic powers and instigating full-on mayhem on many planets. Meanwhile, the AI that humans developed went full Skynet, making ChatGPT turn against humanity and killing billions in what was known as the Cybernetic Revolt. Humans eventually won, no thanks to Big E though. This was the first reason he was terrible. He knew all this was going on, and he most likely had the power to intervene and help humanity. But he decided to stay hiding. Following this massive disaster came the Age of Strife. You see, the remaining weakened human colonies in deep space were being ravaged by orcs, other aliens, or demons. What was left of civilization on Earth was just scraps of a fallen empire. It was basically the Hunger Games owned by a dozen murderous warlords. This is where the Emperor went full clutch mode. He emerged from his hibernation with an army of super soldiers known as the Thunder Warriors. The Emperor ends up reunifying Earth. But this is just the beginning. He knows he needs to reconquer all the lost worlds to have a united front against future enemies. And to do this, his mentally and physically unstable Thunder Warriors weren't going to cut it. So, Big E exterminates them. This was savage, and the second reason why he was a dick. He then decided to focus on a new project. He takes another vacation to the planet Molech and enters a warp portal there. Nobody knows what happens inside. Some believe he made a deal with the Chaos Gods. Either way, once he returned, with that knowledge, the Emperor ends up creating his 20 sons. But, the primarchs end up getting yeeted across the galaxy. Fuck. Turns out, Big E learned a huge lesson about making deals with the gods of chaos. The Emperor ignores the setback, and with his leaderless space marines hops on a ship and goes on a Great Crusade. His goal was to claim back every human world from pretenders or aliens. It was essentially a space genocide, forcing every human colony to bend the knee and convert to the imperial cult or face annihilation. This was the third reason he was a dick. The Emperor basically cosplayed as humanity's greatest fascist dictator. Along the way, he rediscovers his lost primarchs. Of the 20 sons he made, only 12 remained sane and functional. 2 of them were completely lost, and the remaining 6 were deficient of some sort. Magnus didn't know the folly of his own powers. Jagatai Khan was a liberal and too morally ambiguous for his taste. Mortarion hated the fact the Emperor uses magic, as it reminds him of his abused childhood from his adopted father. Angron was a raging roidhead and was beyond his control, and Conrad was just straight-up schizophrenic. Overall, Big E was just glad to have most of his sons back, and he's confident that over time, they'd learn to become functioning members of society. However, the Emperor was wrong. He sucked at being a father. Some of the sons were continuously not getting along, and some felt left out. The Great Crusade continued, and the Emperor gets most of the human territory back. It's a shame they decimated so many people in Xenos, but humanity is still his priority. Eventually, Horus Lupercal, one of his most loyal sons, fell to chaos. He convinced 8 primarchs and their space marine legions to turn into traitors and embrace the darkness. The Emperor realized he might be screwed, with half his army turning against him. But Big E still had 9 good lads. They're not the least functioning ones, and Magnus was still within recovery. That was the case, until Isstvan V. The Salamanders, Raven Guard, and Iron Hands get annihilated, and Ferrus Manus is killed by Fulgrim. But hope was not all lost. Turns out chaos has no cohesion. The World Eaters piss off and are just nuisances. Emperor's children are busy on orgies you didn't think they could do, also delaying the Iron Warriors somehow. The Alpha Legion is infighting. Night Lords got massacred against the Dark Angels. Word bearers consistently and repeatedly destroy their own plans with no coherent scheming. It's a mess. It turns out Jagatai is actually on his side and has stayed on Holy Terra, so is Dorn, Leman, and Korax. Vulcan is somewhere, and he is the ace up his sleeve. Big E realizes this can be won. He just needed to wait for the Ultramarines and both Angel Legions to arrive from Ultramar. At some point during all this, half his loyal primarchs run off doing God knows what, so he is only left with the White Scars and Imperial Fists. Meanwhile, Holy Terra is being sieged from all sides by the forces of chaos. Fortunately, his gender-fluid son, Sanguinius, arrives ahead of his legion. The Emperor and Sanguinius decide to teleport onto Horus's ship for a last gamble to end this war. They get separated on the ship, and Horus ends up killing Sanguinius. At this point, Horus is backed by the powers of all 4 chaos gods. Big E realized that he could not beat Horus alone, and out of desperation the Emperor drinks deep from the warp. He empowered himself but loses control and begins ascending into the 5th chaos god. He snaps out of it and proceeds to rush to Horus and his fallen son for the final battle. The Emperor succeeds in killing his traitorous son, but it came at a cost. And this is the 4th reason he's a terrible person. For someone that was essentially all-knowing, he basically failed everyone. He did everything he could, but all that's left was a dying body. He was left comatose on the Golden Throne for 10,000 years, while his empire was in shambles. Most of his loyal sons go missing again, or are just straight up dead. And the remaining evil sons are now terrorizing humans and doing their own thing. Basically, humanity is even worse off than it was before. The Emperor protects, but not really. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. If there's any specific 40K lore, topics, or conversations you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to drop a comment below.